You see her on CBC's At Issue as executive director of Angus Reid. She has a remarkable grasp on what we are all collectively thinking and is called on often by the media for her insights. But it was her years of paying dues, some of the toughest, least glamorous jobs in broadcasting, and she's come through it and now has one of the most sought-after roles in her field. Please welcome Shachi Kurl.
You know, when I was growing up, they told us girls, you can have it all. We could have careers in technology, the sciences, and math if we wanted. We could have financial independence, sex appeal, the house on the hill, kids, like all of it. And along with those Spice Girls CDs, it's a message that we bought over and over again. Looking back, it's a message we bought into because we knew our mothers were the glass ceiling breakers. They were the ones who wore those horrible mousy suits. You remember, like the gray ones with the super shoulder pads that mirrored male clothing? They were the brave warriors who walked through life with an ain't nobody gonna protect you but you mentality. They went to work armed with the full knowledge that many men didn't want them there, and indeed viewed them as sex objects. They marched into offices and into the workforce with a belief that battle scars were well worth the earning. When it came to my generation, I can't say that anybody pulled us aside in school and said, actually, some men are still going to behave quite badly, so be prepared. Instead, they told us, you go, girl. And so we went, empowered, but arguably not quite ready for the slap in the face, or quite literally, the slap on the butt, that is persistent sexual harassment on the job. It was supposed to be different for us, not just because the Mad Men generation was leaving the workforce, they were retiring, but because the boys we grew up with were more than used to seeing their own moms go to work. Because they came of age in an era of less institutional and less legislated gender discrimination. Because I was in the classroom with them, we were taught that the genders were equal. Instead, it's same crap, different era. In my job at the Angus Reid Institute, I am privileged, I am lucky, I am blessed to be able to take the measure of opinion from Canadians of all walks of life. In research we conducted this year, we found more than half of young women, those aged 25 to 44, and testify, ladies, if you still think that 44 is young, because I do. They say that they've been sexually harassed in their working lives, half of them. For women relatively new to their working lives, really young ladies, aged between 18 and 24, that number persists as high as 1 in 3. There is a heightened cynicism among millennial and younger Gen X women. They carry a harder line on key attitudes regarding sexual harassment in the workplace. Unlike female baby boomers, they are more likely to reject the argument that there is ambiguity that exists around what consists of sexual harassment or how it's defined. If the careers of some innocent parties are ruined in the takedown of a lot of guilty jerks, that's of less concern to them than to other generations and gender groups. While almost all women, 9 in 10 of them, say that they will use various strategies to avoid sexual harassment. They'll dress more modestly or not be left alone with a guy who's got a reputation or is a serial offender or leave a party early in order to avoid harassment or worse on the job. It's younger women who are far less likely to express a sense of buy-in around having to employ these techniques. In fact, they're much more resentful of it. Older women are more likely to outright embrace evasive measures. Older women are more likely to view the responsibility for not being harassed as ultimately their own. These are a couple of examples of the generational differences that indicate that when it comes to conversations that we're having about Me Too, no gender, no age group is monolithic in its thinking. And that goes for men too. If you're a man who bore witness to the sexual revolution of the 1960s and 70s, the macho culture that permeated much of the business world was very much a hangover from the Second World War and masculine organizational dynamics. Lots of booze, lots of smokes, and ladies largely in subservient and assisting work roles. In those days, it wasn't unusual to see a Playboy calendar on a guy's desk. Today, I can only imagine. It is no coincidence that so many of the men under the spotlight for alleged harassment and abuse are of that generation. But more than any of the demographic groups analyzed in our studies, older men, Tony Clement notwithstanding, are also the most likely to agree that women should come forward and speak about their experiences, that men must take responsibility for their actions, and that the changes associated with the Me Too movement are long overdue. Having watched their daughters and their wives and their girlfriends and their partners slog through decades of harassment, we see differences in how older and younger men judge certain behavior in the workplace. Unlike any other age or gender demographic, a significant segment of millennial guys, those 18 to 34 in age, are most likely to say that expressing sexual interest in a colleague or giving them a shoulder rub at work is acceptable workplace behavior. About 30% say this. They're also most likely to say that it's okay to make comments about a coworker's body or tell off-color jokes. About a quarter of them in this age group say that this is kosher. By contrast, men aged 55 plus are most likely to say all of these and more behaviors are unacceptable. I think this represents progress. I really do. But if current attitudes of younger men are anything to go by, women entering or turning the first corners of their working lives have a long road ahead when it comes to some of the male colleagues that they'll be slogging along with in the trenches for decades to come. Little wonder then that younger women take a more jaded view of the Me Too movement's staying power. Millennial and younger Gen X women are far less likely than baby boomers to be of the belief that things are changing for good. After all, we might have been told, "You go, girl," but they didn't exactly tell us how far or how long or how hard we'd have to go to be free of sexual harassment. Thank you.